Be thankful for the sheep and be, wary of the wolf. Because really, being a sheep is not a bad thing if you're following the right person. If you got a good leader and a herd of sheep, all the sheep that are following that leader are fine. And so oftentimes people that are, talking about these things call the human sheeple. Because we just tend to follow the leader.
Yeah.
Sheeple. Instead of people, sheeple.
Oh, like that.
You get it?
Yeah.
We just blindly follow along, and that's what a herd of sheep does. There's one lead sheep and every one. So if he goes off a cliff, they all just go off the cliff behind him, And so if you got the right lead personality, and you follow that person, your future is very bright. And that's the whole system of the Vedic knowledge is you follow the guru, not blindly like the sheep. You don't know what's going on. So the real leader will certainly educate you in all ways so you will see that this person knows what they are saying, what they're doing, is a qualified leader, and I am following them because I know that I'll be safe under their guidance and leadership.
Yeah.
That's the Vedic system.
Yeah.
Since time immemorable, that's been the Vedic system.
Yeah.
But what you are referring to is those who are really wolves. And what does a wolf do? He preys on the sheep, He has the agenda to victimize the sheep.
Yeah.
And they're so easy because they have that natural following tendency. And so they pretend like they're just another sheep, but they're really a wolf in disguise. Did you ever have the little fairy tale, Little Red Riding Hood?
Yeah.
How she was going to Grandma's house.
And what? Yeah, she had, yeah. And she met this, you're right. And the wolf was covered in some kind of...
played like the grandmother.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Did the wolf eat the grandmother? I think maybe yes.
I think yes. Yeah, I think she ate. Yeah.
I think he did. And then he played the role of the grandmother, and the little girl, Little Red Riding Hood, was so trusting and so on, because she didn't recognize that this is really the wolf who's trying to eat me. And so, people are very easily manipulated.
Yeah.
And, more and more now with all the modern technology, it's easier and easier to manipulate people.
Yeah.
You can take whatever narrative you want, and if you keep repeating it again and again, and through multiple sources, like multiple media outlets, etc., even though it's a blatant lie, it becomes the truth just because of continuous repetition. Tell the same lie again and again and again, it becomes true.
That's very true. And enough people saying it, you see that, well, everyone else this is everywhere, so obviously it's got to be true. How can all these other sources be? Is like simultaneously be wrong if they all say the same thing. That's got to be right.
Yeah, they all can't be wrong. And if somebody who sees through it says what is really true, and this is actually not true, then they're the ones that people disbelieve. This is disinformation, this is misinformation, because people are just, sheep, and they follow along with the narrative that the so-called authorities, want them to hear, to believe. So the higher a position a person has, the more ability they have to mislead people.
And
what does it say in Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Because in the Bhagavad Gita it says, what the great man does, the common man follows. And so in society in general, most people are in the category of the common man. And so you have the, quote, leaders who, kind of assume the position of the great man, and they are who the people follow. So this Bhagavad Gita message was spoken 5,000 years ago by the Supreme Lord. And, this is nothing new. This is just reality. In any given society, there's a few great men, and then everybody else is the common man. But the great man today doesn't have to be truly great. He just has to be, in that position. And then when they use their position to exploit other people, then, that's the real danger,
I just I just saw a purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami in Srimad Bhagavatam that I just, as you're reading about that and leadership, and I just have to read this. This is the purport to Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 27. And this is a long purport, but it says, in modern days, the people in general occupy the administration by the strength of manipulated votes. And under the circumstances, the untrained administrators play havoc to make the subjects happy in all respects. On the other hand, these untrained administrators gradually become rogues and thieves and increase the taxation to finance a top-heavy administration that is useless for all purposes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, to get elected now to any position, you have to run a manipulative campaign.
Yeah.
And, that, as it's evolved now, is a very, very expensive endeavor. So you've got to have a lot of money, and you've got to have, the media, that segment of society that transmits your message to the public in your hand. So they say what you want them to say. And, now it's, gone to actual voter fraud where they can manipulate elections and so on. So the leaders get to that position not because the people in general just choose, well, this is the best guy. I like what he says. I like what he does. There's no money involved. There's no, media manipulation. It's just like people in general make the choice. This is the person we want. That's a real democracy, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
That's what a democracy is supposed to be. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But it's not really like that. It's like who's got the most money, who's got the most, control over the media, who's got the most, influential friends in certain positions, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's who becomes the new leader. And the truly qualified person will never make it because they won't be allowed to. It's not according to the manipulative agenda. So
and I guess people, to some extent, they allow for that to happen because they're not perhaps seeing that person for who they are. Again, back to the wolf and sheep's wolf in sheep clothing analogy. They don't, they're tricked into believing that this is somehow a good person. I mean, this is on a societal level, but we could also look at this from an individual perspective, and but they're.
Yeah.
But then I guess it comes back to what you want. There's this quote as well in the Vedas, isn't it, that this world is like described as the world of the cheaters and the cheated. So you have the people who cheat, and then you have the people that kind of let themselves be cheated. And I heard you say once that somehow it's you're equally responsible if you let yourself be cheated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But to prevent that, you've got to be very aware and very knowledgeable.
Right. Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
And, it's like, yeah. And this manipulative thing, we're talking about governments and societies now and so on. But it happens in the spiritual community as well, overall worldwide spiritual community as a whole, And so again and again, it's seen that so-called spiritual leaders, have this, wolf agenda, but they present themselves as greatly spiritually advanced or, great teachers and really care about you and, can lead you to heaven or God or awakening or salvation or whatever and however they present it. And, they get in these leadership positions, and many times they kind of establish their own spiritual community, their spiritual process, their spiritual, organizations and whatever. They establish it, so they're automatically the leader from day one. They just create it, and everybody that comes is coming to them. And so they don't have any, it's not like a voter situation. It's like, they establish
one choice.
I'm the guy, I'm the guru, I'm the representative of God. I am God. That's very, very common theme. I am God, and so I'm your salvation. I'm your hope. I'm your future. I'm your happiness. And people come and, they get cheated.
Well, usually, and this is something we could discuss more, and I really want to do in a podcast, but usually they sell it under the attractiveness of, I'm God, but you can also be. You can be as great as I am. You can also realize that you're a God and be a leader like me and have a lot of followers.
But you're not yet.
But you're not yet. You have to follow me.
Yeah.
Well,
one of these great gurus, that had, it was stated he had 1.5 million followers. Who knows? But anyway, he was asked, supposedly, by one of his followers, well, if you're God and I'm God, then what's the difference between me and you? And he said, the difference is I've realized I'm God and you haven't. So, follow.
Well, that makes perfect sense, because if you're God, then I should be God as well. And then if you realize that you're God, then I should have realized it too. That's what makes sense in my head, but I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, it's all fabricated, and again, there's a lot of influence, and peer pressure and herd mentality and etc.
But is it that we, in a way, kind of want to be cheated? Is that why we tend to follow these wolves that look like sheep? Because or what's the driving force behind us falling into that again and again?
Well, a lot of times we're too lazy to really do the homework, to do the introspection, and really take the message of the so-called leader to our heart and compare it with Scripture and, other personalities that have obviously been speaking the truth, and just see, well, is there some contradiction here, and what do I feel in my heart? What is, the Lord in my heart, telling me? Is He confirming this person is my representative, or, am I not getting that message? In other words, it's a lack of sincerity. It's easy to just jump on a bandwagon, and just get on board. Now I'm on the winning team, or I'm on the team that'll save me, or I'm saved because I'm on the team, or, and the team spirit thing comes in, and, along with that often comes a lot of sentiment and emotion, and you can have, sentimental and emotional experiences, and you feel, like, yeah, this is obviously the path, So again, it's that sheep mentality that makes it so easy for us to be exploited. And so again, the true teacher has always, warned about this and advised his followers to, be careful. Do your homework, Don't just accept blindly. We've talked about this before, and don't just believe a person's realized or a guru because he says he is. Anybody can tell you anything they want. You can just create an image of yourself very easily. I am God. I am the guru. I am the chosen one. I received a message from the divine realm. I had this, whatever. And you can just say, okay, well, that's good enough for me. But the serious person is, he comes to the whole thing with a bit of caution and skepticism. I mean, we have to have that, if we don't want to be victimized. I'm cautious. I'm taking my time. I'm looking to see, And that's again advised.
Because it may look very, it may look very sheep-like on the outside. So you think, oh, this is where it's at. But like you said before, or like it's said in the Vedas, that the true teacher is seen with the ears, not with the eyes. So the appearances and the outer things are not what we should base our faith on or our trust on.
Yeah. There's another saying that a fool is often not known until he opens his mouth. Looks good, seems like a real, but if they really start speaking, you can see that they're foolish, So that's another way.
But even in our, let's call it ordinary relationships or whatever in this world that are not, we perhaps wouldn't see as, our spiritual community or anything, there's just, that tendency is there all the time. It feels like people want to use us for their purpose, or, I just have so many examples of that, and my friends that they get manipulated and they get kind of somehow, people use them in some way. So yeah. So what's the way to guard yourself against that? What's the way to make it so that you don't, just become manipulated and used by other people?
Yeah, it's true. And well, you may not know in the very beginning, but if you are cautious and always, aware, you can see this person just is really, dealing with me for what they can get. It could be a sexual relationship. Oh, I love you. You're so beautiful. I've never met anybody like you in my life. You become my object of worship, etc., etc. But you can actually see behind all that, candy-coated conversation, there's really an agenda. They just want my body, to get their pleasure from me. It's one of the common things that those in female bodies have to always deal with. But it can go the other way too. I mean, there can be those in female bodies who are trying to exploit the soul in a male body. Oh, here's somebody, they got money, and so they don't really want me, they want my money. And but if you ain't got anything, you got nothing to offer them. You got no money. You got no.
Ain't got nothing to lose.
you got. Then well, they're definitely not after my money because I don't have any of that. Maybe they're just after some companionship, and I'm the first guy to go. Whatever. I mean, in other words, it can go both ways. It's not like only one way. So in any dealing with another person, we always have to be a little aware, keep our eyes open. Don't go into things blindly, There's a saying, love is blind. And so this is going to happen so frequently in these, quote, loving, romantic, paramour-type relationships. You just feel these, feelings of attraction and emotion and so on. And it just covers your vision. Love is blind.
Yeah. Which is really lust, but
it's
called
really
love.
Lust, but it's called love. And, there's a saying, there's a song, I remember. There's always songs to go with anything.
Yes.
And it seemed like in the old days when I was young, more of these songs and the theme of the song was based on reality. It was like people just expressing some truths that they'd experienced in their life, or some bit of wisdom contained in the song. But one line in the song was, "Fools rush in where angels fear to go, but angels never fall in love, so how are they to know?" And, it's blindness of love, The fools rush in, So that's life in the material world. That's why we need a true spiritual guide. And they never cheat. They never exploit. And why is it that they never cheat and never exploit? See? And it's very simple. Because they have everything they need in their relationship with God. They're fulfilled. See? They are filled with everything. They are satisfied. They don't need anything. They don't need an exploitative relationship. They don't need your money. They don't need your praise. They don't need anything. Why? Because they have everything. They're satisfied. They're full. And therefore, because of that, they only have the desire to help you. They care. Out of that comes true care and true love. They want to help us. See? They don't need us to prop them up, to help them, to praise them, to, they don't need a huge following to show how pure they are, how perfect they are, to puff up their false prestige. They don't need any of that.
Well, it's very interesting what I just came to this. Doesn't that go the other way as well then? That you as a follower, the more you get your satisfaction and your need for love from your internal world and your relationship with God, then you don't need the guy, the wolf in sheep's clothing, to give you all the things that he gives you, like, oh, you're so great, and gives you, praise, and you're so wonderful in these ways, or whatever you get from him. You're more and more, that will more and more strengthen you as well, because you don't, in a sense, need from him or her in that way. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. But to come to that point, you need that spiritual connection with the Supreme Lord. Right. And the system is, it goes through, you're connected through the spiritual master.
Yeah.
You can be connected, we're all connected eternally. And you can be connected to a degree. But the more that connection is real, the more it's going to become obvious to you, I need a spiritual guide. I need a true spiritual well-wisher, one who can guide me and who cares about me and can protect me unconditionally. Unconditional mercy, care, love, kindness, etc.
But those are all spiritual assets as well, and not material assets or assets that are propping up your false prestige or your false ego.
Yes. Yes. But you can't come to that point of strength to be able to resist the manipulation of the wolf without the spiritual teacher. This is my point.
Right. Yeah.
And some people try to do it independently.
Yeah.
I'll be strong because I will have my, relationship with God and be immune to all these wolves.
I see. I don't need anyone. I can just be in my own teacher.
But there is the way that you can have that strength, and that is through the representative of God, the true teacher. See? And you can't get that satisfaction. You can't get that happiness, that makes you so, I got everything I need. And if you look at the spiritual master who has, as I described, full satisfaction, he doesn't need anything. How did he achieve that? Through his spiritual master. He didn't just get that independently.
Yeah.
He got it through his spiritual master. And where did his spiritual master get it? Through his spiritual master.
So that's the example you're following, and yeah.
And if you follow that all the way back, the original source is the original spiritual master, the Supreme Lord. See? So that's the system eternally, And that's why the true teachers come to help us. But every true teacher has a true teacher. Nobody's just appearing independently and say, here I am. I'm the guy. You don't get a true master just popping up out of, obscurity and being effulgently perfect. It's just not how it works. There is a transcendental system, and you have to be part of that transcendental system. Mm-hmm. And so the wolves, they just roam around. They're not in that system. See, there's no true master who's a wolf. None, ever. In eternity. See? But so few people know that, and it's not taught, it's not really passed down, and so therefore you've got the wolves just roaming around, in the name of I'm the true teacher.
People from the outside, they just say they don't even want to get close to anything related to spiritual things then, because they just see there's a lot of wolves there, and that's what it is. 100% wolves.
Yeah.
No real sheep.
So, the true teachers always say, take your time. One person told my spiritual master, I believe everything you say. And my spiritual master asked him, why do you believe everything I say? Oh, because I just do, He didn't have the vision to see that this is, a person who really is, connected and is, passing on this absolute knowledge, and whatever he says is true. He was just going on some kind of sentiment, and maybe he's seeing other people around who are accepting what our spiritual master is saying, and so he's on that bandwagon as well, But my spiritual master didn't accept it, when he said that. He said, that's not correct, You have to come to the point of understanding why what I say is true.
Yeah,
you have to be given that vision, Whereas a wolf would say, oh, good.
Yeah.
Aha, another easy victim. Whatever I say, they will accept. And it's just open season on these guys. Yeah.
But the difficulty is then, and this is funny, like you said about money, for example. We talked about money for a while ago. It's not that money is bad. It's just using it for the right purpose and knowing that you're, that's an energy you have to spend, and then what you do with it will determine whether it's good or bad. But then the same with the sheep following the herd analogy that like you said in the beginning. It's not that, we have that tendency, but so it's not bad, but it can be utilized for its proper purpose. The tendency to follow, and we need to follow someone. We, like you said, we can't be also our own authority. We need to follow someone. So if that someone is imperfect, it'll be a lot of problems. But if not, then if there's a proper...
Yes. Which brings up another point. This is, beautiful how our conversations are. Because it just keeps bringing up new things.
Mm-hmm.
But the sheep, we all have that tendency.
Yeah.
But the sheep who follows a true leader is obviously going to gain knowledge and understanding and connection. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that sheep now becomes qualified to lead. But he's still a sheep. He doesn't become a non-sheep. He just becomes a sheep who's qualified to lead, but he's still following his spiritual master. See, so you never get out of the sheep position, And that's the beauty of it. You're not trying, I'm a sheep, but I really want to be, a non-sheep. I want to be the leader. I want to be above that and have everybody follow me. See, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You can't be somebody who you can't not be somebody you eternally are. We're eternally subordinate to the Supreme Lord. We're using the example of sheep, but a sheep is subordinate to the leader, and that's eternal. We, the Jiva soul, the individual spirit soul, can never not be subordinate to the Supreme Soul. See? So the greatest devotees of the Lord are always in that subordinate position. They have no desire to go out of that position. See? Whereas in material consciousness, the desire is to get out of that position. See?
It's true.
That's like low position. That's like, you're there, but it's not the best place to be. You want to go out of that to be the leader, to be the big guy, to be, not subordinate, but others subordinate to you. See?
Which
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, which is it's not if you know that you are eternally subordinate to the Supreme, if you know that you are a sheep and it's an uncomfortable situation to be in, to try to lead other sheep. It's not something that you strive for or want to, in a sense. It's more something that you feel compelled to do because that's what your leader is doing and you're following his example.
And he wants you to do that.
Right.
The leader wants you to become qualified to lead also. I mean, how many souls are there that need to be led? But you're just leading on his behalf, who's leading on his master's behalf. Again, the same scenario.
Yeah.
And there was a thought I had that kind of disappeared, but it's it's a system. It's a beautiful system.
And we just hook up to that perfect system, and our life will be perfect. We don't need to do it on our own and invent it on our own.
And another point, we're always dependent. We're subordinate. Well, that's a certain picture in your mind. You hear, there's somebody above me.
Yeah.
But we're also dependent. You see, the big trend in material life is to become independent, not dependent on anybody. The kids grow up, and they want to become independent of the parents. I want to move out. I want to have my own life. I don't want, to be told what to do and, be the kid. I want to be independent. There's many, spiritual teachers who talk about you can become independent, although they want you to stay subordinate to them, but it's a nice idea, that people like. They like to hear that. Exactly. Just like all these, network marketing or multi-level marketing, systems that are, everywhere, selling some product, What is the main theme of every one of these things? You can become financially independent.
Yeah.
Financial independence through this multi-level system. And everybody loves that. I don't have to go to work for the man. I don't have to be dependent on, the parents or the government. I can be independent, financial independence, which, in most people's mind means total freedom, independent, But we're dependent every moment of every day, on the Supreme Lord. We're dependent on everything that He's given us in this world to survive in this body. We're dependent on Him for the air, for the water, for the food, you see, for, everything we need just to survive. People say, I'm independent. Oh, really? We're dependent on the weather. We're dependent on everything.
Yeah.
So it's just an illusion of independence. It's not really true. But the wise person knows, yes, I'm dependent, eternally so. But that's not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when we're independent, we always, when times of, great difficulty arise, try to solve it ourselves. The macho man image, whether we're in a male or female body, the macho, I can figure it out. I can solve it. I'm strong. See? But, the person who's dependent on God, where do they go? They turn to God. God, please help me, And that's perfect. That's where we eternally are.
Because that's our natural position anyway. So anything moving away from that is just moving away from your eternal nature that you can't change anyway.
Exactly.
So better harmonize with it.
But again, that doesn't leave out the spiritual master. We're dependent on the mercy of the spiritual master, which is non-different than the mercy of the Lord. That's what people have a hard time realizing. In the spiritual world, there's this absolute nature. It's not like so different, It's like the love of the Lord and the love of the spiritual master is the same love. It's not like two different individuals having two different loves or two different, care for us or two different, relationships and so on. It's an absolute world, which we don't really have any experience of in this finite world.
But so many thoughts come up. But that's also the essence in true religion. It's not. You made me think about that. It's not. The essence in that religion is different from that one, or different from the essence of love. The essence of love coming from the Supreme is the same in all of them, and that's the true teaching. It's not a religion that we follow, or we're Hindus, and because we chant these mantras or whatever. But it's one and the same love is there, absolutely. And then different systems are more and less indirect, or present that in more clouded way or indirect way. But yeah,
there's only one religion, and that's love for God.
Yeah.
And there's only one religious activity, and that's serving God. So if you understand that, all these sectarian belief systems, just confuse that. They just, create all these divisions, and we're right and you're wrong, and et cetera, et cetera. But a true teacher doesn't teach, a sectarian belief system. He teaches the absolute truth. Yeah. Not Hindu truth, Buddhist truth, Muslim truth, Christian truth. Because there's only one truth. That's back to this absolute world. Absolute truth, absolute knowledge, So we've said it so many times. I'm sure on various podcasts, we've said it, that the absolute true teachers are not teaching a sectarian religion. Jesus was not a Christian. He didn't teach Christianity. Although he's the focal personality in Christianity, he didn't teach Christianity. There was no such thing as Christianity at that time. It did not exist. If he was in some category, it would have been Judaism. He was born in that culture, where that was a predominating belief system, with their scripture, etc. But he didn't teach Judaism. He taught love for God. He spoke on the absolute platform. Muhammad was not a Muslim. There was no such thing as Islam. He was speaking, there's only one supreme person, and we are subordinate, and we should serve that supreme person, pray to that supreme person, And after him came, his followers, and they said, this is Islam. We're Muslims.
Yeah.
And the ones who came after Jesus said, we are Christians.
Yeah.
We are followers of Christ, and we are therefore Christians. And the same in, all these different religions. Buddha was just teaching what he taught. And those people who came after him, they called themselves Buddhist.
Yeah.
Buddha is the real special one. We won't go into that, but nonetheless, the point's the same. There's only one religion, there's only one absolute truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so the scriptures that contain this absolute knowledge are known as the Vedas. Veda means truth. And it also means knowledge. True knowledge. So if you read Bhagavad Gita, for instance, which is the main scripture we read, there's nothing in there about Hinduism.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in there about, some sectarian system. It's just like Krishna speaking to Arjuna, his dear friend and disciple, and he's enlightening him to absolute truth. You're not the body, you see, and etc. So, this is what the true teaching is.
Well, yeah. Again, there are many directions you could go with that, but I guess we have to, but yeah, it's got to be written down somewhere, and he's got to have some name. So, but just because it's written down in India or in the physical location of India, the Vedas were in it presented as written form, then, it's Hinduism. Just because it's the name Krishna is there, then, it's Hinduism. It's,
Yeah. And just because, Jesus appeared, in, the area he appeared in around the Sea of Galilee and so on. Well, that's the seat of Christianity,
mm-hmm.
Et cetera, et cetera, And interesting enough, Muhammad was in that same area, just some 1,500 years later, et cetera. But it doesn't matter where it came from. The truth is still the truth, And so a true teacher will try to bring us above all these limiting, dividing teachings and beliefs and influences.
Make it so that we are not independent, but we're intelligent sheep. We know what we follow. We don't just follow because the others follow.
Yeah. And within any given pure system, there can also be people supposedly, in that system, following that system, that can start displaying sheep-like wolf-like qualities also.
For sure. Right.
It's not like, I'm in this system, so therefore I don't have to worry.
Yeah.
No, that's again just some illusion. It can happen anywhere.
Exactly.
So a wolf can be anywhere, in any position. It's not like, but they're high up. They couldn't be a wolf.
Mm.
Oftentimes they become the biggest wolf. So we have to be always, careful. This world's a dangerous place, and we have to always be careful. You can't be too careful. Okay, Ruben, looks like time's up.
Yeah.
Again?
I think so.
Yeah. When are we going to do another short one?
I was thinking this could be a short one, but you know how it is.
Yeah. I'm sure our people who tune in are, wondering about, when are they going to have another short one?
But you can pause it. It's easy on the podcast.
Yeah, you can just listen to 15 minutes and come back.
Yeah.
So, time to have a kirtan. Hare Bo Goranga Goranga Hare Bo Goranga Goranga Hare Bo 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 Goranga Goranga Hare Bo 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 Hare Bo Goranga Hare Bo Hare Bo Goranga Hare Bo Goranga Hare Bo Goranga Hare Bo Goranga Hare Bo Hare Bo Goranga 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 Goranga Hare Bo Hare Bo Hare Bo Goranga Hare Bo Hare Bo Goranga Hare Bo Hare Bol. Well, everybody should know that tune and mantra by now.
I think they do. Unless someone new is joining us. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's the thing. These mantras are timeless. You don't get old.
Yeah.
Ever fresh, ever fresh.
So chant the mantras.
Okay.
Be careful and see the wolves for what they are when you're chanting, and when you get that vision, then that's how you get the vision.
You know,
That's how
the
you,
Lord's in your heart. If something doesn't feel right,
right.
there's a good chance it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's our protection. Knowledge and the Lord in the heart and the teachings of the true teachers.
Thank you, Pelikia.
Thank you, Ruben. Another wonderful session. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We really appreciate your participation. If you like what we're doing, let other people know about it. Share it.
Yep.
And if you haven't done so already, subscribe.
And hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Namaste.
Namaste.
Haribol.
Haribol.